With this video I'm going to take you back into a little bit of the past, how I got to meet guitar player and singer Snowy White, who played with Thin Lizzy, Pink Floyd, and later on he played with Roger Waters. It is all about improvisation, it is all about being open to new ideas, and a lot about traveling and meeting a lot of interesting people that I was really looking up to. I finally got to play with them and work with them in the studio as well as on the road. Now here's a little video of Snowy White and the White Flames.
The more you live, the less you die. So don't waste your time on that. When you see the future coming, like the rising of the tide.
Wow, that is quite interesting. I remember the best period of being on the road with Snowy White was actually with the lineup with Walter Lataprise on the bass guitar, Max Middleton on keyboards, who also played with Jeff Beck, and of course Snowy White on guitar, and he was also singing and writing all the lyrics and basically writing most of the songs. Actually, he was writing all of the songs. No, not really. I co-wrote a couple of songs with him. I think a few tracks, I wrote and I just delivered, and we just played on it and we recorded it. So, well, recording in a studio in England, that was quite an interesting thing. But you have to bear in mind that where I come from, as you obviously can hear with my Dutch accent, I'm from Holland. I grew up in a little village, not a village, but a town that was called Waalwijk. Hello, people from Waalwijk. And Waalwijk had a lot of musicians, good musicians. We had a lot of bands with original music back in those days. Anyway, I grew up there and I was listening to bands like, like Thin Lizzy, and I heard the name Snowy White. I think I found it a really cool name, Snowy White. You know, when Phil Lynott of Thin Lizzy was singing, and on my right there's Snowy White, and he likes it in the night. And to my ears, hearing Phil Lynott singing that and saying those words, for me it sounded like, oh my God, this is such a heavy dude, that's Snowy White. It's like, his name is all about everything you don't want to know about, because he does everything in the night. Anyway, but in the end, how I got together with him is a different story. I'll try to keep it short. I played at the Jimi Hendrix Festival in the Paradiso in Amsterdam, and I was playing with my band. One of the other acts was Snowy White, and he was playing with some Hungarian blues band. And I remember that he was there, and I thought, wow, that's the guy, that's the guy I've been listening to his name, his guitar playing. He's here right now, and I didn't dare to talk to him. I just was so insecure, and also very polite. I just don't want to be on nobody's nerves, especially not on people that I admire that much. So I just backstage stood away from him. But I got to tell you that the bass player I played with, Walter, he was sort of tipsy, almost drunk, and he was just walking around with his glass of white wine. And I remember that he just decided to go to the other dressing room where Snowy was. It's too funny, this story. And I thought, no, he's not going in there. He's not going in there. And he was. So he went there, and I could see through the door that was still open that Snowy was sitting in a corner. I could only see his legs, and Walter was standing in front of him with his white wine. And he just said, "You, Snowy wine!" And he was laughing out loud, and I felt so embarrassed. And actually, after that show, I drove home, and Walter was in my car, and I said to him, "Man, what the f did you do there, man? You know who that was?" "Yeah, I know, I don't care." And he, that was amazing. So actually, we didn't meet there, but we were very, very, very close. I think 2 days later, my phone rang. a guy was on the phone that I didn't know, and he turned out to be the one of the managers of Snowy White. And he said, "Man, Snowy saw you guys playing in the Paradiso, and he was really, really impressed. And he's asking if you guys would be interested to go on tour with him in Germany." And I thought, this is a joke. This is not true. But, you know, the guy was serious. And I said, well, okay, so when is it then? Well, within 2 weeks. And so I said, well, we have to rehearse. And then he started saying, well, you know, he comes to Holland. If you can organize a rehearsal place, then. And at that time, I didn't have a rehearsal place. I just had my drum room where I was teaching. And I said, yeah, I have a rehearsal room, no problem. There's a drum set and there's a guitar amp. So I organized all that, and 2 weeks later I picked him up from the airport, and I drove him to Tilburg. Found a rehearsal place where I was teaching back then, which was in the studio of Paul François. A very small place. And I remember I took him there, and we entered the rehearsal room, and Walter was already there, being nervous, of course. And Snowy came in, and the first thing he said, "Oh, it's that guy." So he remembered Walter, and so the rehearsal went very good, very well, and we went on tour, and that went very well. Funny enough, 2 weeks later after the tour, I got another phone call from the same guy, and he said, "Hey man, the tour went so well, Snowy is ready to record an album, and he wants you to play the drums, and he wants your bass player and stuff." And I said, we go to England, and I never was in England before, never been there. I have to tell you this because this is becoming a road story. Back then, and I can't remember exactly when it was, but I think it was somewhere around 1996, 98, something like that. If you go from Holland and you want to go to England, you have to go either to Belgium, to Oostende, and then you go to Ramsgate, or you take the tunnel. I can't remember if the tunnel was ready in Calais. I think we just went to Ostend. So I bought a ticket, made a reservation, and back in those days you didn't have Google, you didn't have Google Maps, so you had the map, so you was reading the map and sort of thought, wow, it's so many kilometers, that's okay, you know, it's going to be cool. 2.5 hours from where we lived. So I picked up Walter from his home, and on the way to Belgium, Walter said, "Can we go to a shop?" To a shop? What kind of shop? "Well, I need some spare strings for my bass guitar." And I was a little bit pissed off because I said, "Man, you know, we are in not a hurry, but you know, we have to move on." He said, "But it's going to be quick, man. You know, the shop we know, and it's going to be like 10 minutes the most." I decided to drive to that shop, and some of you watchers might know the shop in Waalwijk, and so we went in there. And the lady of the house, so nice, you know, it's really difficult to buy something and just leave, because there's always this conversation about how you doing, and interest and coffee. So it took a little longer. And then I pulled Walter's arm. I think it was after 40 minutes. I said, "Well, we really have to go now." So we drove off, and we drove and drove and drove. And of course, this route, the way to Ostend, I never went there, so it was all kind of new to me. And I drove and drove in my old Peugeot, and when we arrived at the terminal, it was really funny. I saw the boat there, and I thought, well, we're just in time. We just get on the boat, and we're just lucky. But the guy at the gate, he said, no, the boat is already leaving. I said, well, the boat's still there. Yeah, but embarking, it costs time, you know, the ship is closed and they are leaving. So basically we were too late, and I asked, when is the next boat leaving? And he said, well, it's going to be not earlier than 5 hours from now. And I thought, oh my God. So we stood there as the very first vehicle in lane. in the rain. It was really terrible. I felt so terrible. I was totally pissed off, and I said to Walter, I have to make a phone call. I have to call Snowy. And back in those days, you didn't have mobile phones, so I had to find a phone booth in Belgium. And I remember back in those days, you didn't have euros. It was like a Dutch currency, and there's Belgium currency, the francs, the Belgian francs. I just had a few francs on me, so I could make the call. And I phoned the studio. The guy from the studio picked up the phone, obviously, and then Snowy was on the phone. He said, "Hello." I said, "Hi, Snowy, this is Juan." "Yeah, I can hear that." So English. I said, I'm so sorry, we just missed the boat." "You what?" "We just missed the boat." "This is a joke, right? It is not true, is it?" I said, it is true. So what time are you coming then?" I said, "Well, 5 hours later." And then he said, "All right, 5 hours later. So what am I gonna do?" And I felt so embarrassed. Just imagine, your first trip, you're invited to play with the best guitar player that you ever played with on his album. You go to England, you're gonna play with Gary Moore, with Dave Gilmour. Everybody's gonna be on the track. And I'm gonna make this call telling him that we are 5 hours late. He never asked me why we were late. I was just happy he didn't ask, because I didn't have to say what was the reason for it. I just said, "Well, we just missed the boat. I'm so sorry." "Well, when you arrive in England, you better hurry." "Okay, take care then, chaps." And then he, put the phone down, and I was really pissed off. But those things happen. I've never been in England, and I'm driving my old Peugeot. And you have to drive on the other side of the road. Everything is like on the left. I remember getting off the ship. There was no problem, because you just follow everybody. But then you move out and everybody's driving fast, because these are all English people that live in England and they know how to drive. And I'm just following this truck. And then comes the first problem. Right out of the gate, there's the first roundabout. You go like, there's this block in your system, like, what am I going to do? And then you just follow the truck, but then you realize I really have to pay attention. I was really focused on driving on the left side. So it took us still another 3 hours to get to Farnham, which was quite a long way from Ramsgate. This is where we entered England. But in the end we made it in the evening. It was already getting dark, and we arrived at this beautiful studio, like an old farm, rebuilt like a big studio, and Snowy was there in the doorway. He had a mug of tea. Said, "All right, I guess unloading them." So no coffee, nothing. We just unloaded the stuff, set up the drum set, did a sound check that evening, and I think we recorded the first track. Well, yeah, that album was great. That was the album Highway to the Sun, by the way. Okay. The reason why I tell you all this story is it just comes up, and I think it's nice to have a spontaneous storytelling for all of you. And if you don't want to listen, just move forward, because now we come to that part that I was going to talk about. And this is all about another album. This is the second album. The second album with the title No Faith Required. Now first I'm going to show you a little part of the song. And I hope that YouTube doesn't take the video down, but this is just a few seconds, and let's see what happens. So here's No Faith Required. I got a lot of questions from a lot of drummers about this groove, and so I decided to take this groove on board as a little story, but also as a little lesson how to approach this type of music. And what you have to know is what I told you before. When Snowy writes a song, he just sends out the cassette and he has this basic idea, and he wants you to come up with ideas for the drums. Now this song, No Faith Required, he had no rhythm pattern, nothing. So when we came in the studio, I had a certain idea, and the idea was I thought it was really cool, you know, it was really nice fitting into whatever he was playing on the guitar. And so we were in the studio, and Kuma Harada, the bass player who also produced The Highway to the Sun, he was also the producer behind No Faith Required in the beginning. And we started to jam around with that song, and then suddenly it was really funny. I played something and I thought it was really nice, you know. Maybe you recognize that, you know, you are together in the studio, and you still have to find your way in finding the right groove for this certain song. And everything is still open, and once you have found something, the other guys, the bass player will adapt to it, and the piano player will play certain parts and patterns, and you're trying to play something that becomes more organic and will fit together. You have to bear in mind that I was always trying to find ways to be original, whatever that meant. But in my brain it worked like that, you know, never just a backbeat, just do something extra, do something funny, do something weird, do something fusion-like, whatever. And I got away with it with Snowy because he was really open to any suggestion that I came up with. But this song particularly, he didn't like what I was playing at all. He said, I don't know, I think we have to go somewhere else. And he was always very polite. He would never say, I don't like what you're playing. He would always be like, I'm not sure if this is the right direction to go to. And it was, for me, it was like very polite, but it already felt like, this is not the right groove for this piece of music. And then I have to give the credit to Kuma. Kuma Harada said to me, you know what you should do. He had his great Japanese accent back in the studio. He still has, of course, but he said, maybe you should change the drum set. Change the drum set? What do you mean change the drum? I play like this. But maybe you should add something to it and take something away. And now he starts to sound like an Italian, but forget about it. Anyway, so I tried to take out a cymbal and I took away a tom, and then in the end I came with a little setup that I thought, well, maybe this will inspire me to play something differently. And wait, I got a picture. Let me get. Yeah, here's a picture. Now, you see the picture. You can see the setup. It was the drum set that I used of the studio. It was there, and I had a little bongo tom, something like that, and I put it on the stand with tape and glued it, or I don't know what I did. But actually, the little bongo tom was there, and that made me play in a different way. And then Kuma said to me, well, I want you to take the snares off. Again, he sounds like Italian, but I'm not good at doing impressions of people. So, you know, I took the strainers of the snare drum off and started to find a certain beat. And then he said, I don't want you to use any hi-hat. So imagine, you know, you sit there behind the drum kit, and by then you have learned so many things. You've studied at the conservatorium, you studied so many tracks, you did jazz fusion, not really jazz, but jazz fusion and rock, and it's all about cymbals and hi-hat, and now this guy comes up, I don't want you to play any hi-hat. So I felt like this is gonna go nowhere. So I was struggling, and we kept on going, and I felt like a disaster to me, and at some moment I just came up with something that they seemed to like, and that was a groove that started with the bongo, something like that reminded me of Steve Gadd, except I didn't play the hi-hat. It would be like a groove that Steve Gadd would play, like something like that. But then instead of playing the hi-hat, I used the little tom, or the little bongo tom, and then used the snare drum without the strainers. You know, the strainers were switched off, and this is how the groove started, and they were really liking it, and I was starting to like it, and so I did 2 tracks of that, 2 takes, and then Snowy said, "This is okay, I love it," but I was not even ready. You know, I just got into it, just got into something new that I wanted to play, and I really had to focus hard. And he decided in the second take already to keep it, and I was not happy with it. Listening back to the track on the record, I can hear, you recognize that, you hear always something that is not perfect, and if I listen to it now, I can appreciate it. But if I tell this story, I'm going back in a time where I felt really frustrated that I didn't have the chance to do another go, or maybe the fifth take or something like that, just to make it perfect. But the good part is, later on we played it on the live tours, and when Max Middleton joined the band, we sort of started to rehearse the piece, and it became more mature, like a good wine, and I really started to enjoy playing that song. So telling you all this story, that sort of makes me want to sit behind a drum kit and explain to you, with the settings, how you can play it, which I'm gonna do. So let's go to the studio. Let's do it. Why not? All right. So there we are in my studio. Welcome. I'm going to explain and show you how I came up with that groove and what actually happened. First of all, the hi-hat I'm going to play on the backbeat. So that means every second and fourth beat in the 4/4 beat, I'm going to play it like 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Just keep it going. And then we do the sticking, so you can see what's happening with the hands. I'll play it very slowly. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now I will add the bass drum to it, and the bass drum does exactly the same what the hi-hat does. So 3 and 4 and. So what I'm going to do now, the next step will be, I want to come closer to the original sound of the track. And I don't know if you remember, but on the picture I showed you the little bongo that we placed over here with duct tape. I don't have the bongo right now, so I want to create a similar sound that comes close to that bongo. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put my hand on the skin of the snare drum and play a little rim shot right here, the very first note. And then it will sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's basically it. So it's all about creating the same sound that you used on the record, but approach it in a little bit of a different way. Well, I hope you enjoyed this long story. I hope you enjoyed the way I tried to explain how I approached that particular song with that kind of groove. Try it yourself, I think the lesson is all about being open to new ideas. Also be open to, if you want to create something together with your band, start to look for different things. Don't walk on paths that everybody already has walked. You know, start to find something new. I think that's the most important lesson to learn. Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, you can support me by just, subscribing to this channel. Hit the like button if you liked this story, and if you didn't like it, you can give me the thumbs down. Again, I know where to find you. And the notification bell, if you push that one, then every time when I come out with a new video, you'll be the first one to know, and you can enjoy either the story or, me playing the drums or whatever I'm talking about. Stay safe and take good care of yourself, and I'll do the same.